I had a grandmother whose cooking I didn't enjoy very much, but she did have one redeeming dish: breadfruit pudding. It's September and also close to the very end of the main breadfruit season here in Jamaica. The other day I got these two small breadfruits to roast, but they got overripe so fast. It's hard to even pick them up without sticking my fingers into them. I could do a roast and fry, but these are so ripe and so soft that even after frying, the texture and flavor would still be off. A lot of people like it like that, but not me. So let's do something a little different. Breadfruit this ripe is very easy to peel. Wash the breadfruit under your hands and just peel the skin away like this. In Jamaica, breadfruit has two seasons. The main season lasts from June to September during the height of the hurricane season. These rainy months usually give us the biggest crop of the year. Then there's a secondary season from around December into early spring, but breadfruit production is not as heavy. Because Jamaica has different microclimates and a few different varieties of breadfruit, you can find breadfruit year round. This is especially true for parishes that get consistent rainfall throughout the year, like St. Thomas, St. Mary, and Portland. But in general, the market is usually flooded during the main summer season. Once peeled, the flesh separates easily from the breadfruit heart. I'm trying to avoid these empty seeds. They'll never sprout into a new breadfruit tree and they don't add anything to the pudding either. That part there isn't as soft because it was damaged, so I'm going to toss it. If I use it, it would give an off flavor. My grandma used to pick up breadfruits that fell under the tree. Most people I know would give these to pig and she did that as well. But every now and then she would turn the ripest ones into pudding. Not a lot of people enjoy the taste and texture of properly overripe breadfruit. But she would take her time to craft a breadfruit pudding and bake it over coals in a Dutch pot. I remember all summer, visitors would drop in asking if she had any bakings, and she would give them a healthy slice with pride. Our breadfruit is finally ready. That's about 2.5 to 3 pounds, or roughly 3 cups of breadfruit. So, let's get everything together. I'll be using a blender, just because it simplifies everything. First up, 1 can of coconut milk. Coconut milk is essential in Jamaican style puddings. Next, the breadfruit flesh goes in. That's a cup of brown sugar. Breadfruit can be surprisingly sweet, so factor that in when adding your sugar. These ones are on the less sweet side. That's a tablespoon of my homemade mixed spice. I have a video where I show you how to craft a banger mixed spice blend that's better than the store-bought stuff. I linked it in the description, but use store-bought if you just can't be bothered. That's a tablespoon of cinnamon. Cinnamon complements ripe breadfruit really well. Next, I'm grating in about a teaspoon and a half of nutmeg. A teaspoon of salt to tie everything together. And that's it for now. Let's give this a blend. I blended it nice and smooth, unlike how my grandmother would have done it. She would leave hers with some texture. I'm eyeballing this, so I taste it at every step. That tastes good so far, but let's add the next ingredients before we make any adjustment. Next, a cup of all-purpose flour goes in. Mix that in to hydrate the flour. I switched to a whisk to break up any lumps. Mixing gave me a bit of time to think about the flavors and what it needs. This could actually use a lot more cinnamon. The breadfruit has a bold flavor and a more obvious cinnamon taste would complement it really well. I also need another pinch of salt. A big splash of vanilla for a bit of that fragrance. And we'll just mix that in to distribute all our ingredients. I didn't pay a lot of attention to my grandma when she was baking this, but I can imagine her technique was a bit different. But yeah, the pudding batter is done, so let's get this to the next steps. This is banana leaf. This is the OG grease paper. My grandmother never used it, but it feels right for this recipe. Before we can use it, we have to wilt it over open flames first. Jamaicans call this quailing. It quickly cooks the banana leaf, making it much more flexible and able to bend where the unwilted one would just break. Once we have our wilted banana leaf, we can line our baking tin. Banana leaf is naturally non-stick, so we don't have to grease it at all. Just make sure you line that pan nicely. This is honestly underrated as a liner, and I love the rustic vibe it adds to the dish. Next, pour the mixture in. This batch ended up giving me two 8-inch baking pans. The aroma is really lovely. Those warm spices mixed with the subtle smell of ripe breadfruit are just so pleasing. These are going into the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about an hour and 30 minutes. 325 to 350 degrees Fahrenheit is kind of the all-purpose temperature range. I use it whenever I'm not sure what temperature to cook something at, and it's been very reliable. My grandmother only cared about three temperatures though: too hot, too cold, or just right. Not exact, but still a good guideline. About 45 minutes to an hour in, I'm going to grab about a cup of coconut milk. To that, add a quarter cup of sugar and give it a stir to dissolve. Salt to taste. Then grab those almost ready puddings from the oven and pour some of that coconut mixture over the top. I was going to gel the surface of the breadfruit pudding for a really beautiful finish. This step is pretty typical of most Jamaican style puddings. These will go back into the oven to finish baking. And these are done. Not exactly the look I was going for, but I'm still very happy. They smell so good. The warm spices and the breadfruit aroma work surprisingly well together. Let's cool these for a bit before testing. Once cooled, the texture will firm up a bit more, making slicing a lot easier. That is it. Let's see how we actually did. Breadfruit gives this very unique texture unlike any other pudding. It's actually very delicious. It's soft, the spices are perfectly balanced, and they complement the bold breadfruit flavor really well. But it's not without a couple caveats. The ripe breadfruit flavor is a bit too strong for me. I personally prefer the texture of my grandmother's breadfruit pudding. It was a bit more rustic and had a little more flour, which helped mute the breadfruit flavor a bit. Something that I think would work really well is to cook the breadfruit first before turning it into pudding, whether steaming or roasting. Cooking twice usually improves the flavor of ripe breadfruit, just like with a roast and fry. I really enjoyed this, and everyone I shared it with loved it, so maybe I'm just nitpicking. So, Grandma, I guess you win this round. Next time for sure. I'm Nick. This has been delicious. Just a reminder to show someone some kindness today. Thank you for watching. Bless up, and I'll catch you in the next one.